easements at Wood Street. We have speakers tonight, so I'd like to call Nigel Bowen up to the table, please. Nigel. Thanks for coming, Nigel. I'll give you 3 minutes to speak. You'll hear a buzzer at 2.5 minutes. And just so you know that I'll be stopping you after that if you'd like to start. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the opportunity. Can everyone hear me okay? Yep, put on a mask. Sorry about that. I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity to present in person, because I know it's difficult at the moment. I'll cover the flood impact that this subdivision will have on the adjoining properties. The concerns I have are related to traffic around the subdivision and the safety of people on the ground in relation to the airport flight path. Our property is located adjacent to the subdivision, about halfway down Wood Street on the west side of the East Main Drain, near Wattle Drive. First item, flooding. The intent of the land subject to inundation overlay classification is to ensure that any development does not create flooding to adjacent properties. The Goulburn Broken Catchment Management Authority stipulates a condition that requires no increase in flood velocity or flood levels on adjoining properties due to works associated with the proposed subdivision. It is expected that modelling be carried out by a suitably qualified consultant to demonstrate no third party is impacted. This statement is consistent with the intent of the classification. My first question is, has this been done? If so, where is it? If not, why not? And why would council be entering into granting a permit without one? As the Goulburn Broken Catchment Management Authority again stipulates the height of the entire subdivision being built up at least 300 mil above the 100 ARI flood level, it is obvious to me that these conditions cannot be met. This itself creates an issue to the adjoining third parties, as the water level will be deflected from the new subdivision into the adjoining properties. This subdivision will act as a dam wall, or a levee if you like, because of the new built-up height causing additional flooding of these properties, and will fail to meet the second condition, which is the applicant will be required to undertake flood modelling showing that their works on site, including filling land, will not increase flood impacts on adjoining properties. Subject to this condition, it is expected that the proposal will not result in unreasonable flooding impact to adjoining properties.
That's 2.5 minutes.
Sorry, okay.
Is that right? No, 2.5.
Okay. In 1993, the 1993 flood, our house escaped inundation by 1 centimetre. Because of this small margin, it would not be reasonable for the subdivision to be responsible for any increase in flood levels. Traffic issue, funneling of all traffic via Wattle and Banksia roads into Wood Street is concerning, as they are small and inadequate and both cross a drain, which in time of flood will be inaccessible and effectively locking properties up. This is a safety issue, and consideration must be given to provide alternative access to the subdivision via Sydney Road.
Thank you. Would you like to extend that?
Extension, please, Chair.
Moved Peter Day, Councillor Davis, seconded Councillor Claridge. Please continue. I'll give you another 3 minutes.
Thank you. As stated in my objection, there seems to be a couple of existing options between the Benalla windscreens and Truck Whisperer properties on Sydney Road that could be used as alternative entry-exit points. The battle-axe shape of these blocks suggests that they are designed to be access roads leading into the subdivision. If this is not possible, then why state on page 20 of the agenda, by directing vehicle movements towards Wood Street, the majority of the traffic will then head south towards Bridge Street East to the roundabout controlled intersection. This is preferred to directing traffic to an uncontrolled section of Sydney Road. There are existing such uncontrolled intersections at various points along Sydney Road. This should be part of an overall planning by the council and not by the applicant. Additionally, there has been no mention of my suggestion of calling for roundabouts on Wood Street to manage the traffic flow, and these would act as choke points on the existing Wood Street, traffic. The subdivision will be directly beneath the airport northern flight path. Noise from the plane was highlighted in my submission and dismissed but the dangers associated with the potential plane glider accident is also a concern, as was the case in the recent planning objection for a nearby subdivision. So what's good for one side of the airport should be in fact good for the other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Has anyone got any questions for Nigel? Councillor Van Wert.
Nigel, are you aware that the 300 is the floor level, not the ground level?
Yes. Yes.
So it's the floor level of construction of the dwelling, not the ground level of the subdivision.
It's 300 mil above the flood level.
Above the flood level, yeah, but that's the floor level of the dwelling, not,
Yes.
not the property.
Yes, that's right. And that's not stopping them building the whole subdivision up.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Firth.
Just a late one, sorry, Nigel. Your main concern is drainage or is it flooding?
Interesting.
Because they're two different things.
I understand what you mean, but in terms of property, they are both in one of the same.
Yeah.
Because the
When they
impact,
happen, we're both wet, but just trying, the question is which are you?
okay, the 1993 flood, we had to battle flood, that was a flood, and we were very lucky not to get it inside our house. But every 2 or 3 years, we will get heavy rain like we've had today, that will break the banks of that drain and comes into our properties. That's existing. So that's drainage,
Drainage.
that's not flooding.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
the problem still exists in both, and I've made representation to council on a couple of previous occasions many years ago, asking for the drain to be increased in size.
Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Nigel. You're talking about access off Sydney Road. You're talking about emergency access, or you're talking about a permanent access?
I would like to see a permanent access. I think an alternative exit entry point into the subdivision would be ideal for the subdivision, rather than funneling everybody out over the drain, which at times might be a problem because of the flooding and heavy rain.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much, Nigel, for your time.
Can I just add one point? I'm not objecting to the subdivision. I just want it done right so that it doesn't impact
Thank
on us.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Our second speaker tonight is Paul. Would you like to come up, Paul?
I'm really just here to answer any questions if anyone has any, but thank you for your raising your concerns and flooding concerns. But I think probably Kyle Oxley, who's our engineer, is the best person to respond to that, rather than from a planning point of view, because it's in the stormwater management strategy and design that we've sort of started. So if anyone's got any questions for me.
Councillor Firth.
Yes, thank you for being here to answer questions for a start. With regards to the whole subdivision, it's staged in 6. Would the developer be prepared to do it in with a go-ahead for stage 1 or stage 2, but not the other stages until there are other works, possibly drainage works done?
By the council, do you
By the
mean?
council,
Or-
yeah.
I'm sure that we could put that proposal forward.
Okay.
I don't think certainly wouldn't be off the table, but I guess would depend on what the timelines were and demand for lots.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Davis.
Paul, just to clarify, the first point of the works on the site would be to put the basin in, the storage basin in.
Absolutely, that's why that's in stage 1.
That's what's in stage 1.
Yeah. get that all prepared for the rest of the development as it proceeds.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thanks very much, Paula. If Kyle would like to come up and, if you'd like to come up and, speak. And the same 3 minutes will be time to Kyle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I actually don't have a submission, but I'm quite happy to take any questions,
All right.
particularly around flooding or the drainage aspect from an engineering point of view.
Other questions? Councillor Claridge?
In stage one, where do you expect to catch the water in this basin here?
Yeah, so the general philosophy is for the whole subdivision to drain it all back to that basin or combination of basins in the lower end of the site, which is to the north. And then to pump that back into the main drain at a rate that is actually less than what it is currently discharging at present. So the general underlying strategy with the drainage is to certainly not exacerbate the current situation out there. It will actually be, when the subdivision is fully built out, it'll actually contribute less than what it does now. So
Follow-up,
Yes,
please.
councillor Claridge.
What depth of water do you expect to be in the basin?
well, so pretty much the thing that will determine the depth of the basin is the fact that any new subdivision of this style needs underground drainage. There's no question about that. So we need to get underground drainage from the top of the site all the way down to this end of the site, and that just based on the distance and minimum grades as per council's infrastructure design manual, will probably, I've estimated a basin depth in the order of 2.5, from 2.5 to 3.5 metres. In terms of the water level, the basin will fill up to a maximum of 300 mil freeboard in the basin. Again, that's in accordance with council's infrastructure design manual. So we will, to accord with the infrastructure design manual, there's a requirement to have enough storage in the basin for it to fill up and take the flows from the site for 24 hours. That's to allow for breakdowns of the pump, power failures, gives council a chance to get something down there to pump it out otherwise.
Councillor Danwich?
So how many pumping stations do you actually require?
It'll just be a single large pump station.
A single one?
Yep.
So if that breaks down, what happens then?
Well, that's what this 24-hour requirement, where it comes from in the IDM, to give council, so there'll be 24 hours before the basin will ever be at risk of breaching.
Okay, so what happens then when it breaks down, do you throw it back on council? So why haven't you got a secondary one? We had a situation already across town where that happened. And so to rely, instead of throwing back on council, which really, it's your issue, not mine, ours.
Well, ordinarily, any pump station of that size would be a council asset. It would be gifted to council through the development process. But one thing I could say, which certainly wouldn't be out of the realms of contemplation for a development of this size, would be to put a diesel generator onto it as a backup supply, possibly.
So is that achievable in this plan? To have that done?
I couldn't see why not, no.
Because my concern is the fact that we've already had that issue, and then we as a council are picking that up.
Right, okay.
And so we're not beneficiaries of this subdivision. The owners are. So then in turn, they're throwing the responsibility back on us if something goes wrong.
So not knowing any details about that pump station you speak of, but certainly in more recent years with the Adelaide Council's infrastructure design manual, there's quite strict requirements there. Things like having 24 hours storage to give time to do something about a pump failure or power outage or something like that. The infrastructure design manual also relates back to Australian standards, having dual pumps in the pump well, and possibly there might be provisions in there about emergency supply as well.
Okay. You tell me offhand where the retention basins are. What's the height of the top of the retention basin in relation to the height of the drain that runs through there?
So we haven't got that far in terms of detailed design, but certainly, the other use of the basin is to take the cut out of that, which will be substantial, and spread that onto the lots for filling, because there's no denying the site will have to be built up. In terms of where its relative level is to the main drain, I'm not sure at the moment, so.
Thank you. Councillor Furr.
Yeah, just with regards to the retention basins and the drainage, so the entire subdivision's drainage all goes into the retention, there's none,
That's correct, yes.
no other outlets going into the main drain.
No, it's all controlled through that rising main outfall from the pump station, which at the moment we've suggested 100 litres a second, which is well below the pre-development rate that it currently would.
And possibly our staff can fill me in on this one too, you may not know, but the actual volumes that you're talking about when the 24-hour period, is it 24 hours of 6 inches of rain or 24 hours of
It's 24 hours of rain during the 1% or the 1 in 100 year storm.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a considerable amount of water.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crowe.
The two basins, are they linked?
Yes, they'll be linked. They'll be linked insofar as that one can drain, the smaller one can drain through the bigger one into the pump station.
And just one follow-up. Will these basins be fenced?
That'll be a product of a detailed design. Certainly the infrastructure design manual talks about doing a risk assessment, and the outcome of that risk assessment would then determine, in consultation with council's engineers and planners, and whether that ought to be fenced.
Thank you.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The flood velocity and the flood levels, and all that work that has to be done,
Yes.
when would that be done?
In looking at the draft conditions in the agenda, I believe that would be conditioned in the permit, so prior to the development commencing. In all reality, I would imagine it would be during the detailed design, probably early on in the detailed design.
So that would go in with the planning agreement, so it would be done in advance, not after works started?
Oh, certainly prior to works, any works ever commencing would be my understanding, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Thanks very much for your time, Kyle.
Okay, my pleasure, thank you.
Okay, planning application item 2. Hello, Joel and Neelish. Would you like to take us through this, please?
Hello, can you hear me properly?
You can.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I present to the Planning and Development Committee a planning application for a 138 lot subdivision and in six stages, and the removal of native vegetation at Wych Street, Benalla. The proposed lots will range in area from 359 square metres to 5,026 square metres. 2 access points are proposed into the site from Wych Street to the west, being from Banksia Drive and Wattle Drive. Both road reserves have a minimum width of 20 metres. 2 retention basins for stormwater will be located within the northern portion of the site, with a total area of 9,758 square metres, and a public open space reserve with an area of 7,521 square metres will be located within the southeast corner of the site. Most native vegetation will be retained on the land within the public open space area. A planning permit is required for the removal of 1 tree, which is located within lot 115 of the subdivision. The tree to be removed will require offsetting. All other native vegetation to be removed from the land is exempt from the need for planning approval. The proposal has been advertised and 1 objection has been received. The issues raised within the objection are outlined on page 10 of the report and generally relate to flooding, traffic impact on Wattle and Banksia Drive, noise from glider planes, provision of public open space, and provision of services and small lot sizes. Proposal has been referred to all relevant authorities who advise of no objection subject to conditions. The proposal has been assessed against the relevant requirements of clause 56 of the Benalla Planning Scheme and the general residential zone requirements, and has been found to comply. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel. Are there any questions? Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joel, you would have heard all the discussion around the flooding. And one of the conditions of the permit is that it's expected that modelling will be carried out by a suitably qualified consultant to demonstrate no third-party impacts. It is expected, is it mandatory?
Yes, to do the report prior to any buildings and works, pretty much, yes.
So granting this permit means it can't go ahead until that's done.
That's right, to our satisfaction, and the CMA.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Van Wert.
So on the referral, is NBN one of the referrals or they're no longer required?
NBN will be one of the referrals.
Which one's that?
Uh,
The list of referrals here, but they haven't got the NBN.
Just look at the conditions. Condition 11 and 12 of the permit requires connections to telecommunications.
Thank you, you're right there.
Yeah.
Councillor Claridge.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. With the retention basins, when this permit is, or if it's granted, do they then become council property?
Yes. Once titles are issued, they become council property, yes. They become reserves.
So council parks and gardens would be responsible for the maintenance of these areas?
You're correct, yep.
Are they aware that this is likely to happen?
Are they aware, sorry?
Are they aware that these assets are likely to become part of their operations?
The engineering advice has come through to, our engineering department's aware of it. I'm not sure if our operations department are aware of it.
Another question?
Sorry, Joe, one more follow-up. I mentioned before fencing. Is it a requirement of council to have that fenced if it's likely to hold 2 or 3 metres of water?
Look, not necessarily. It really depends on the depth. Nilesh might know a bit more about that aspect.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through Madam Chair, there will be a risk assessment. It's part of the infrastructure design manual to carry out a risk assessment, and then if required, then it has to be fenced.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
Thank you. Joel, I believe council owns some lands nearby. Does that, I haven't seen the bigger plan, but are we landlocked from getting access off Whit Street to our lands?
Our land is to the north and east of the site. I can't tell from what we've got before us as to whether that impedes access or not.
It's a sort of question you need to know, because you don't want to, these days you don't want to landlock anybody, especially if you start landlocking yourselves. My second question is, I know we've got some 300 square metre blocks. To me, we can't even put an old-fashioned Hills hoist on 300 square metres. So what's the views? Why are we going down to such a small block size?
So out of the 168 blocks we've got, about 20 of them will be between 300 and 500 square metres. Most of those lots are provided on corner sites, which is where you get double fronted blocks, so both lots will get good frontage access to the street. And that is where those smaller blocks are encouraged to provide for dwellings that can easily be designed to front onto streets.
Yeah, well, just as a follow-up question for that, Joel, I'm not dwelling on it, but if you go down Thomas Street, there's a block on the corner nearly 3/4 way down Thomas Street that's got a small dwelling on it. And it doesn't look very pretty. It's on the corner. I don't know how far down Thomas Street it is. I can't remember now. But down towards the end of Thomas Street, it might be near Walla. There's a little house on the corner there, and in the new subdivision like we're putting in here, if we've got these little spikes on the corners of the subdivision, it's not going to look very pretty.
Well, I'd have to disagree with that. I don't necessarily believe that building on a small lot means that the design of the dwelling is compromised. It could be you could have a nice small lot or dwelling with 1 or 2 bedrooms that is presents well to the street as nice brick dwelling that has a nice frontage to the street.
Okay, I'm not going to win the argument.
Thank you. Councillor Alexander.
Through Madam Chair, Joel, is this a requirement of social housing or affordable accommodation or something like that? It's just something that seems to have come up recently.
I'm sorry, I can't quite hear.
Requirement under social housing or affordable accommodation. How come this is something new on planning?
Smaller lots.
Smaller lots is something new. Why?
I don't think it is new. It's just something that's becoming increasingly more prominent in Benalla because of the increased housing demand that's coming in due to the additional jobs that are coming into the town.
Councillor Claridge.
Okay, Joel, just a follow-up on Councillor Davis's query about the land that we own next door. If in the future we were to turn that into an open space type area, there's no access from this subdivision to the open space. And especially if it is landlocked on Wood Street.
So I've just got a bigger plan now. There is frontage from our land to Wick Street. So there is possibility to get into that land.
Councillor Furr.
Yeah, good evening, Alicia. Joel. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My questions are with regards to my concern that the 24-hour period of rainfall that the retention basins are designed to hold. And the question is it normal if we were to pass a section of this subdivision but not the whole until retention basins and things are worked out with regards to drainage? We do have issues with drainage in that part of Benalla, there's no doubt about that. And the retention, if we were to do stage 1 and stage 2, and then see the quantities or the volumes that are flowing into those retention basins and seeing how, because with the design, they have to be the water retarded there and then pumped by one single pump into our main drain. I've got concerns about the fact that if that pump was to drop down and it was very heavy rain over 48 hours, the result's not going to be it's not going to be good for anybody. Is that normal? Yes, Nellish?
Madam Chair, the infrastructure design manual requires 2 pumps, so a duty pump and a standby pump. So the pumping station will have, and the design has to make way for a generator to be fitted in as well, and the telemetry as well. So there needs to be lights and all that sort of stuff that is within council's control to see and then repair. So there's There will be a standby pump and there'll be a duty pump. That's the requirement of the infrastructure design manual.
Thank you.
I would like to ask a question. I'd like to know if you could tell me, please, what sort of development will be done on the two roads to make them viable for these subdivisions?
So the two roads will be upgraded to comply with the infrastructure design manual. The two roads coming in off Wattle Drive and Banksia Drive, they will have a road reserve width of 20 metres, which is something that you'd see in, let's say, Cowan Street, which is a 20 metres in width, and will also allow for indented parking off the side, that sort of width of street. And the improvements over the drain, will those culverts be changed or to a higher standard, or are they at that top level now? That I can't answer.
Through Madam Chair, that will be dependent on what the design comes in for the culverts. If the culverts were not designed when they were constructed to carry traffic, they'd have to be modified to carry traffic on them and the traffic volumes related to the subdivision itself.
Okay.
So if there's a need to upgrade, it's on the subdivider to upgrade that.
Thank you. And another question I have is the open space in stage 6, that's open space, isn't it, down the bottom, the 7?
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Is it able to be used as a road to connect through to Sydney Road in the future or
not? It's possible that there's other ways also to see connection through. It could be through the north of the site, through, let's say, block 95, lot 95, through to the north of the site, but through to the south. But really, it's not a requirement from the independent traffic engineer that needs to happen.
Yes, thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joel and Lish, just to clarify, the total capacity and size of the retention basin needed won't be staged with the stage of the subdivision. It will be built to the capacity required from day one. You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Not like what was in Cowan Street.
That hasn't been put forward to us. Look, if it's a requirement of if the basins are in stage 1, we would like them to be fully constructed to comply. That will be to our satisfaction if it's fully constructed at stage 1.
Okay, so the place will be at full capacity at stage 1.
Yep.
That's required for the whole subdivision.
That's right.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If there's no other questions, and the recommendation. It starts over here on page 23 and finishes on page 38. Is there anybody, please have someone move that? Councillor Upson, seconded. Councillor Davis, would you like to speak to that, Councillor Upson?
No, thanks, Madam Chair.
Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Davis?
Only to say that it's good that we've got another subdivision happening in Benalla. certainly we have to address the water issues, and I think now this has put council on notice that in the big picture, we have to put in our council plan moving forward that we look at drainage, like councillor first went on for a while, that we have to seriously look at moving forward what we're going to do with vanilla drainage.
Thank you.
Seriously. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to comment? All those in favour? That's passed. Thank you very much for your time, speakers. We'll move on to item 3, building and planning approvals. Joel, is that you again? Nearly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, present to the Planning and Development Committee the monthly building and planning activity report for August 2020. There were 10 applications, 2 amendments and 3 Vic Smart applications decided under officer delegation. 1 application was decided by council, 1 application was withdrawn, and 2 notice of decision issued. There are 2 matters still before the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal. 28 building permits were issued within the municipality. Council's building department issued 19 of those 28 permits, and the value of those constructions were approximately $4.13 million. There's an addition to the recommendation on a building fee that was omitted from fees and charges, and forms part of this recommendation. And the recommendation is this report be noted as well. Happy for any questions.
Are there any questions? Councillor Claridge? Councillor Bentley?
Yeah, I just have one clarification, please. You list on page 44, construction of an O and M building. What's, excuse my ignorance, what's O and M?
Operation and, through you, Madam Chair, operations and maintenance building.
Thank you. Can you tell me what that is used for?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's for the solar farm siting for the workers in the future.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Lodge?
2 Mayor Street. Caravan park and removal of vegetation. Where's Mayor Street? 2 Mayor Street.
Car park.
Where's Caravan park?
Car park. Car park.
2 Mayor Street is.
Oh, can't read it.
Are there any other questions?
We'd like to hold it.
If there's no more questions, can I have someone move that, please? Councillor Upson, seconded Councillor Alexander. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Upson?
No, thanks, Madam Chair.
Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Alexander?
I need to say that it's great to see so much development happening in the island, and now $54 million this time.
Would anyone else like to speak? All those in favour? That's passed. And we will close the meeting at 6:38. Thank you very much, everybody.